stressful week with a situation that certainly impacted our community in Minneapolis. So I do want to make some comments about the senseless death of George Floyd. I want to reach out to all of our community at Intermediate District 287 by acknowledging a monumentally tragic event in our community and to express my deep sadness, anger, and frustration at the senseless death of Mr. Floyd, a Black man who died in police custody this week. His loss of life and the loss of life of too many Black men and youth impacts all of us. I recognize the trauma that racial violence has on our Black students, staff, and family. As a white woman, I've had the privilege of being shielded from experiences that are wrongly thrust upon people of color, and I own that. I know that my words alone are inadequate. I hope to continue to develop my own journey of understanding and to work for healing and to build a community of justice and respect. To our Black and brown students, staff, and families, your lives matter. District 287 stands with you, and we fight for you. We believe in you, and we know your value. We together are a community. Let me say, your lives matter. I'd like to just hold a few moments of silence in memory of Mr. Floyd, for all of his family and community members who are touched by his loss. Thank you. Meeting. We are going to conduct our regular business meeting. This is a live streamed meeting on our District 287 YouTube channel. The meeting is also being recorded, and a link for the meeting will be posted in the school board section of the 287 website. The community is always invited to share their thoughts and comments with the board. We ask that you please complete a virtual meeting request form for written input that is available on the 287 website school board section. Written comments received up to 30 minutes before the board meeting will be read at the beginning of the meeting. I'd like to invite member Michelle Coons to read the mission for 287.
Good evening. The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students.
Thank you. And we'll follow with staff member introduction, or I'm sorry, board member introductions. Crystal, could you please call each of us in alpha order so we know when it's time to introduce ourselves and our home districts?
Adams.
Steve Adams, Hopkins School District 270.
I am Crystal Brecky from Richfield Public Schools. Keene.
Hi, Andrea Keene from Wayzata Public Schools.
Coons.
Michelle Kuntz from Orono Public Schools.
Neville.
Hi, I'm Regina Neville from Edina Public Schools.
Sant.
Sorry, I was muted. Sam Sant, Robbinsdale 281.
And Seidel.
Adam Seidel, Eden Prairie 272.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to follow with staff introductions. And we may have had some people join since I initially noted everyone who is here. So if I do not call your name, please do unmute and introduce yourself so that we know of all staff members present. I'd like to welcome Michelle Axel, Ann Becker, May Hawkins, Sandy Lewandowski, Juanine Mgini, and Julie Turilla. Thank you so much for being here. And are there any staff members I may have missed? And I want to welcome Ruthie Dallas. Glad that you're here. Ruthie, we just did board member introductions. So if you could please introduce yourself and the district you represent. And Ruthie, can you hear me all right? Hi, Ruthie. Are you able to hear me? And Juanine, if I could ask if you or another staff
Okay.
member. Oh, here we go. Thank you.
I had the mute on. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you. If you could just please introduce yourself and your member district.
Ruthie Dallas with Brooklyn Center Community Schools, number 286.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to walk through this evening's agenda. We'll have an audience opportunity to speak if anyone has submitted a written request. Approval of the consent agenda. And we will follow with the Business Services and Labor Relations report, which will include resolutions for board approval this evening regarding some personnel actions. And that we'll be concluding with board business. Are there any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I move that we accept this evening's agenda as printed. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ruthie Dallas. Thank you. Crystal, would you please call the roll for approval of the agenda?
Adams. Oh, it looks like we may have lost Steve. I don't see him on the attendee list.
It does. We do still have a quorum, so we can continue forward.
Okay. Brackey is aye. Keen. Andrea.
Sorry, I froze up there for a minute. Yes.
Dallas.
Here.
Is that an aye, Ruthie, on approving the
Yes.
agenda? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Just wanted to make sure. Coons.
Aye.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The agenda is approved as written. We'll move on with audience opportunity to speak. Juanine, has anyone emailed with a request for shared comments this evening?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Our next item is approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as printed?
I so move. This is Andrea Keen.
Thank you.
Seidel, second.
Seconded by Adam Seidel. Thank you. And Crystal, would you please call the roll for approval of the consent agenda?
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is aye. Keen.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Coons.
Aye.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes, there we go. There we go. Yeah.
We got it.
Thank you. The consent agenda is approved and passes. We'll follow with our Business Services and Labor Relations report. Let's see, I'm not sure who would like to introduce this particular segment. So maybe Superintendent Lewandowski, if I could ask you to give some introductory comments, and then maybe we'll proceed from there.
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, this is a set of resolutions that we typically bring forward at this point in the school year. We certainly are cognizant of the decision-making on this kind of resolution, these kind of resolutions. Yet we'll be asking for your approval. And I'd like to turn it over to Michelle Axel for her remarks prior to calling for the resolution. So, Michelle.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Board Chair and Board members. I'm Michelle Axel, the Director of Human Resources. As you know, Intermediate District 287 serves some of the most challenging students in the region. Recruiting, hiring, and retaining top talent are critical to the district's mission to serve students with special and alternative learning needs. A recommendation to non-renew probationary licensed and non-licensed employees is reached only after an extensive decision-making process and is one the district does not make lightly. Like all our member districts, Intermediate District 287 works with an established protocol of consistent procedures. Non-renewal decisions are management decisions and are based on observations and evaluations, projected student enrollment and program needs, our District 287 10 expectation for employees, and specific for our licensed staff, the standards for professional conduct as outlined in the Code of Ethics for Minnesota teachers. We have difficulty finding licensed staff in several different areas and would not let anyone go without a very good reason. I'm ready to present the first resolution. Thank you, Board Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. Could you, we'll take each resolution one at a time. So if you could please begin with the first resolution for probationary licensed and non-licensed non-renewal resolutions.
Point of order. Is there
Yes.
a discussion on this issue?
Yes, we'll have the presentation of each resolution, and following the presentation, there will be an opportunity for discussion.
You just said now, though, that each resolution has a separate vote. So are we going to hear everyone first and then vote, or are we going to discuss them or wait to hear all three of them first?
Well, we can do, the way it's written in is that we would take each one individually. So we would have a presentation, discussion, and a vote. But we could have, is there any discussion that people would like to have prior to the presentation of the resolutions?
Yes, there were a few emails sent to District 287, which I'm not sure why it's not being brought up. They wanted this read by the whole board from a Miss Jessica Cross and a Miss Morgan Youngquist. Were those not going to be read?
We are not able to read those before the full board. That's background information that was shared with the board, but we are not able to read them in the context of the open meeting.
Well, the way the statements are written, they were written to express the whole board, and I believe to be brought up at this meeting.
They were brought to our attention for background information prior to the meeting. And if I could pause for a moment, I'm receiving some texts from Dr. Gwen Jackson. She is working to join the meeting and is having some difficulties. So I just sent an email out to try to help facilitate that.
Okay, I could give her a call right now.
Thank you. I'm not able to admit anyone to the meeting, but I respect her request. So
okay.
If Ann Becker, if I could ask for some background regarding protocol with staff emails. This has not been a common experience for 287, but it's certainly possible, and we welcome communication with the board. But could you please provide a little bit of background on this situation?
Madam Chair, we did not get any requests for audience opportunity to speak. If we had gotten that kind of request, we would have read the letters had that been the request. But instead, the email made it sound as if the letters were being presented to the board to read prior to the board meeting.
Thank you. What I also can share is that the protocol for boards as recommended by the Minnesota School Boards Association is not to discuss communication that is sent to the board in the context of the open meeting. So our goal was to make sure that each board member received the background, which we have had the opportunity to read within the time allowed. I also recognize that they were received this afternoon, so there was not a large amount of lead time, but sent to us as background. But we're not able to discuss the the letters in an open meeting.
Then I would like to make a motion for us to go into closed meeting to discuss them.
On what grounds would you propose the closed meeting? Which statutory guideline?
Based on then discussing employees of District 287, and they cannot be discussed in open meeting, and it would therefore in the closed meeting, I would like to call for a closed meeting then.
And again, we need to cite a statutory reference to be able to go into.
I am citing a statute. I am citing a statute. The same statute that says that you have to have a closed meeting to discuss personnel matters. That would be the statute that I'm referring to.
And Anne, could you please help with verification of the correct statute citation?
The statute that Board Member Sant may be thinking of is the one for discussion of preliminary allegations against an employee. And we don't have any allegations here. We can't just close for a regular personnel matter.
Is that helpful clarification, Sam?
If I can, I think the disconnect, and Sam, please correct me if this is not what you are actually feeling, but I think the disconnect is being told that this can't be discussed in a public meeting, but then also being told it can't be discussed in a closed meeting. And so I think if there is maybe clearer rationale for why neither of those is possible, that might help address the question that is being raised.
Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate the additional context. And Sam, would that help address some of the concerns that you're sharing?
It would, if there would be a logical explanation as to then why I cannot make a motion for a closed meeting based on discussing an employee or employees.
So I'm pulling up my statutory references. So one moment. I have them saved, but I did not print them off.
I think as that is being pulled up, the overarching thing I would say around closed meetings, and I think Anne kind of addressed this, is we can't go into closed meeting to just discuss anything, even if it's related to personnel. There has to be a very specific cause that is aligned to the state statute that allows us to go into a closed session. So I think that's what Regina is trying to pull up right now. Is it is a very short list of very specific items that actually enable closed board sessions to occur.
Thank you. And I do have the list up. This is MSBA statutory references for when a board must close a meeting. And there's discussion of not public data in terms of particular in which the following types of data would be discussed: victims or reporters of criminal sexual conduct, domestic abuse, or maltreatment of minors or vulnerable adults, active criminal investigations, educational data in which people are personally identifiable and that is not directory information, health data, medical data, welfare data, mental health data, and individuals' medical records. Also statutory reference to preliminary consideration of allegations or charges. Dismissal, but then in this case, the employee needs to have the option of having the meeting be public if they would like to choose that. And we haven't had that kind of communication. student expulsion, labor negotiation strategy, closed by the Bureau of Mediation Services, evaluations, but there needs to be notice in advance, attorney-client privilege, property sale or purchase, and security issues. So I'm not aware that any of those would legally apply to this situation, but I would invite Ann Becker to correct me if that is not accurate.
That is accurate, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And is that helpful?
Then if it cannot be used to discuss, or if they don't meet the criteria to discuss in a closed meeting, then it would be allowable in an open meeting then.
We may not discuss individual data in an open meeting. We can't discuss the letters in an open meeting, and there's no opportunity for response for any additional information. So that is the difficult position of board governance, is that there is going to be background that a district has that may not be shared publicly. So we cannot present just one side of an issue. And it's stepping into a management role. Our role as a board, and I recognize the frustration, our role as a board is to allow our lead team to do the work that they have been asked to do with the protocol that has been established.
I get that. Well, the reason for this discussion is because some of these lead roles are being questioned.
They are being questioned, but in an open meeting context, we're not able to provide any context for multiple points of view and additional background.
Is it fair to say that individual cases cannot be discussed in this setting? Broader questions about how these recommendations are coming to the board and board members being able to ask how decisions are made, not specific to individuals, is allowable. Is that accurate?
I believe that is accurate. And Anne, could you please confirm if that is the case?
That is accurate.
So, and I think that that is also a helpful context. And I appreciate the information and background that Michelle Axel shared at the beginning of this particular agenda item. But I know that it is a complex process. And maybe there's some additional background that between Michelle or Anne or Superintendent Lewandowski, if you could share, and between the three of you, a little bit more information about the protocol of the process of non-renewal.
Madam Chair, I would invite Michelle to comment first.
Thank you. And Michelle, I appreciate the background that you can share and the fact that you have been doing this for many years and that 287 does have a protocol established. Can you speak to some of the steps that are taken and perhaps the length of time that is taken to make these determinations?
Thank you, Board Chair. Yes. Again, as I highlighted earlier, it's an extensive process which begins almost immediately upon hire, as we follow Minnesota Statute 122A40, completing evaluations for our licensed probationary staff. Our supervisors meet with those employees, observations, evaluations. I, along with Assistant Superintendent Elizabeth Lodge Rogers, will meet with supervisors throughout the year to discuss employees that are probationary regarding their evaluations, regarding the district expectations that I've laid out, and also regarding any concerns around employee conduct and around employee ethics as a Minnesota teacher. The focus as well is on coaching, lots of coaching goes in, lots of conversation. And at times we bring the whole team together across the district in these decision-making moments. As I shared, we don't take decisions to either release a licensed or a non-licensed employee lightly. And so we will set up various measures across the year, along with additional supervisors or additional directors who have an opportunity to connect with employees, as well as our instructional coaches. And when that final decision is made, they don't, like I shared, they're a management decision in which we stand solid on those decisions. May I ask how I might help clarify any further for you or any other board member?
Thank you, Michelle. Perhaps before we move on, I do want to hear any additional board questions for clarification, but Sandy or Ann, would either of you like to add any comments at this point?
Madam Chair, I would just offer that, as Michelle said, these are decisions that we take very seriously. There are a lot of variables that go into these decisions, and we are very cognizant for those individuals that are about to be tenured, that that's a pivotal year, and that moving into being a tenured teacher under Minnesota law carries with it a lot of statutory obligations and protections. And so while we do take our time over the years to really study and coach, as Michelle said, our licensed staff, there are times when that standard is not met as one that we feel is worthy of tenure. And for that reason, many of these are difficult. I can tell you that principals agonize over these, central office agonizes over these. We realize the impact to staff and at times to students and parents. But it is one that is not taken lightly or done quickly.
Thank you. And I appreciate the background that both of you have shared. Sam and any other board members, I would invite additional questions on the process if you have any.
Madam Chair, Steve Adams here.
Yes, Steve, thank you.
What is the probationary period for new hires, Sandy?
I'm going to let Michelle answer.
Okay.
Our licensed staff follow Minnesota Statute 122A40, a 3-year in a single school district, meeting 120 teacher service days. And if they've completed their continuing contract and or tenure in another school district, it would be 1 year with meeting that 120 teacher service days. For our non-licensed staff, it currently, for this group of non-licensed, it's based on their date of hire, and it's 2 calendar years.
Okay. And these are all non-licensed positions that are on this particular resolution?
We have 2 separate resolutions. I believe that first resolution is related to our non-licensed.
Right.
And the second resolution is licensed.
Right. So there's a
But I
two-year probationary period that we use to observe their performance, correct? For these particular ones.
Correct. We have 2 years.
All right. Thank you.
And just for clarification, item number 1 is for probationary licensed and non-licensed non-renewal. That's our first item. Number 2 is temporary licensed positions. The third is a resolution reducing programs and position. That's a separate topic. And then the fourth resolution is proposing to place licensed staff on unrequested leave of absence. So 4 separate resolutions that will be before us this evening.
Can I ask one more process question?
Yes.
It would be helpful to know the ways in which staff members are able to advocate for themselves and participate in this process, whether it's the 2 years or whether it's the 3 years, depending on which of the 2 resolutions somebody falls into. Because I do think a question is sort of what opportunity do people have to appeal or to challenge if they disagree with this decision. And so there's that piece of it, but I think there's also what are all the things that lead up to this that a person is able to be involved in and be a part of before it gets to this very final stage, which is it coming to the board.
I don't think Elizabeth is here at the moment. She may be able to speak on that a little bit in further detail on how those principals engage in the conversation, certainly from that first observation and evaluation conversation, and within our working within our McCrell evaluation detail, and talking about the areas in which they need to improve, and talking about concrete and providing concrete feedback on information and how that could be observed or different in terms of areas of improvement. And so there's opportunities to circle back, to observe and to watch through. We have a culture of the opportunity for supervisors really focused in any given day to just pop in and come into classrooms to first of all, to observe all the success that is happening and to recognize, and then to identify areas that may need some support. And support is first and foremost focused around helping with student success. And so it may be around bringing in a mentor teacher and or a instructional coach.
If I could add, Madam Chair, the McCrell evaluation model is one of growth, and so there's a huge emphasis on allowing that growth by providing specific feedback, by providing the opportunities that Michelle described. But it's a growth model rather than a static model, if you could put it that way.
And Madam Chair, just one more thing, is the McCrell model. Last year, Ben McGrath led an effort basically with every licensed group, area and non-licensed, to gather, convene representative groups to review the evaluation of what they were being evaluated on. So that has all just been refreshed, not this school year, but last school year. So it's a very, I would characterize it as an updated process with employee input that from a district standpoint is probably the most consistent evaluation model we've had over time.
I appreciate the background, and I remember the presentations about the McCrell model that were shared with the board on more than one occasion. And I recognize that that has happened prior to the 2020 calendar year. So it hasn't been something that all of our current board members have had an opportunity to become more familiar with. Is it possible to send out a summary of the McCrell process for board background after this meeting? I recognize it's not something we can share during the meeting, but as some additional background.
Yes.
Thank you. And those are helpful questions. I appreciate the additional information. Are there other questions of clarification about the process?
Madam Chair, Steve Adams again.
Yes, Steve.
I was looking at the list here of the probationary, non-licensed and licensed teachers. And I see on the non-licensed, we're within the 2-year statutory, we meet the statutory requirement of the 2 years of probation or less. But on the list of probationary teachers, all of them are within 3 years, except for one that's 5 years. Her date of hire was August 25th of 2014. Is this going to be legal to terminate her?
Yes, let me address that individual. She's been a part-time FTE employee who has worked on different years with different assignments of either 1 to 2 days per year. So has not met the 120 teacher service days or students.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Are there additional questions or comments?
I have an additional question for the superintendent. Superintendent Lewandowski, you mentioned previously a few times that you believe in the grow your own model, and I feel this is very pertinent in this situation because districts have invested so much with a lot of this, and I don't know the whole situation. I know that there's always some turnover, and that happens in a district from year to year. We have the same thing in Robbinsdale. I get that, but with so much vested and to be able to listen to peer review, and I'm not familiar with all these models or what goes on with it, but would it be pertinent in this type of situation, given the environment that we're living in today?
I'm sorry, Sam, that last part cut out and I didn't quite understand it. Just the last sentence or two.
I said, given the current circumstances and the environment, would it be pertinent to do this with what's going on today, with the grow your own model that you've believed in, and with how much has been invested with these staff to drop them at this point, especially with so much uncertainty in the future?
Okay, I'll give it a shot if I understand your question correctly. The grow your own model is indeed one that we have invested in, and it results in either non-licensed staff being able to ultimately achieve a license that we might specify as a need, or in the case of some licensed people, add an additional licensure, again, one that we are probably having challenges finding applicants with that particular license. And so it is a very important model and one that we're working to improve each year. But every person on this list, for example, isn't necessarily part of the Grow Your Own program. What I would say is that we do understand the amount of investment that we put in individuals, and over time we really have worked hard to select candidates with the skills that we believe had the most potential to meet the needs of our students first and foremost, and overall our district. And it doesn't mean that individuals on this list don't have certain qualifications, certain strengths. It simply means that as a whole, over time, we believe this may not be the best match for those candidates. And probably most importantly, it might not be what is the best match for our students and their families. And so that is a difficult decision sometimes, because like I said, there are individuals that have strengths, but maybe not all the strengths that we need for these particular positions that oftentimes are very complex and very challenging. So I hope did that answer your question, Sam?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And does anybody else, Sam or anybody else, have any additional questions about the process regarding these resolutions? So I would ask Michelle if you could please present the first resolution regarding probationary licensed and non-licensed non-renewal.
I'm presenting the first resolution relating to the termination and non-renewal of our probationary non-licensed employees for board request board
Thank you.
action.
Is there discussion? Well, I should bring it to the table. Is there a motion?
I so move. This
Thank
is
you. Moved by
Andrea Keen.
Andrea,
Second, Adam Seidel.
seconded by Adam Seidel. Thank you. Is there discussion regarding this first resolution? Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded, and we'll move forward for the vote. And Crystal, I would invite you to please call the roll.
Adams.
Aye.
Racky is an I.
Yes.
Keen. Dallas. Ruthie. It looks like you're on mute. We'll keep going and maybe come back to Ruthie at the end of the list. Kuhn.
Thank you.
Michelle, you are also on mute. Okay, we're going to come back to Michelle too. Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
No.
Seidel.
Yes.
Ruthie.
And Juanine, could I ask if you could please check in with Ruthie to see if there is anything that we can provide support for?
Yes, I'm checking on her now.
Thank you so much.
And it looks like Michelle is with us.
Sorry.
That's okay. Michelle, we're still taking the roll.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. And I do want to hold for a moment. I would like to be able to record Ruthie's vote. And Juanine, when you have a little more information, just if you could please let us know. I'm watching for emails. So in the interest of time, I wonder about protocol, if we can leave this open but move on to presentation of the next resolution.
Hi, Madam Chair. I'm
Yes.
talking to Ruthie right now, and while we're going through it, she's going to email both of us, but she would like to abstain. I'm not sure, Ann, if I can say that or not, get that through that way. She is emailing, though.
I appreciate the update. Thank you. And if you could please clarify, but my understanding is that it is fine for Juanine to read that communication. And is there anything that we should be aware of that contradicts that understanding?
Just for form's sake, I would like you to receive the email, and then Juanine can certainly read it.
That makes sense. Thank you. And I'm refreshing my messages to wait for the email. I think everybody's email is slow this evening. And Juanine, I have not yet received the email. Have you received it?
Not yet. I know she's working on it right now.
Sure. We'll hold.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Adam. It's my understanding that a vote to abstain is not a vote in and of itself, but a indication of a declining to vote, and therefore, regardless of whether or not we receive an email as to Ruthie's intentions, or if she were to say abstain, it's functionally the same thing. It's a refusal to vote. So I don't know if it's necessary to wait any further than we already have on this issue, given that there's no functional difference.
Thank you. I appreciate the background. I did just receive Ruthie's email. And Juanine, have you also received it? And
Yes,
Juanine,
I
could
have.
you please read it?
Ruthie Dallas, I abstain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Adam, I appreciate the background that you've shared. What I appreciate about receiving the email is clarification in writing of a board member's intent to abstain. So just confirming that, yes, the intent is to abstain or not to vote, in addition to whether it could have been in writing as a yes or a no vote. But I appreciate the additional background. We will move on to the second resolution. And Michelle, could you please present resolution number 2 regarding temporary licensed positions?
Yes, I'm presenting the resolution and requesting board action for the probationary teaching contract for the following probationary.
Got it,
And
Juanine.
non-renewal.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a motion to bring this resolution to the table?
Seidel, so moved.
Second by Adams.
Thank you. Moved by Adam Seidel and seconded by Steve Adams. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will take the vote. Crystal, could you please call the roll?
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an I. Keen.
Yes.
Dallas.
I'm abstaining because I didn't get those 2 letters that the group was talking about. You sent out today?
I did not send I forwarded letters to people who were not individually. Is someone asking a question?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we are on the vote. We are not on discussion.
I
Okay.
understand that we are on discussion.
Well, it's pertinent that all
But
board members have all the right information, though. If some of us have information that not all of us do, that's not fair as a vote.
I
Discussion?
think that's not the cause of disagreement, though. It's just that right
No,
now.
that's why I'm abstaining. I just say abstain. Yeah.
I appreciate the background, and it was my understanding that the people who chose to send the email had sent them individually to all board members except for 3 whom they identified in the email. and those individuals had the emails forwarded to them. But thank you. I appreciate the additional background. And Crystal, could you please continue with the roll?
Coons,
Aye.
Neville,
Yes.
Sant,
No.
Seidel.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. We'll move on to resolution number 3 regarding reducing programs and position. And Michelle, could you please present the resolution?
I believe we're at resolution 8.3.2, temporary license positions resolution.
That was the one we just presented. So this should be reducing programs and position.
Okay, I apologize. I saw 2 resolutions under 8.3.1, one for non-licensed probationary and one for licensed. And 8.3.2, the resolution for those who are holding a temporary position for tier 1, tier 2, or
Okay.
out of field.
I'm going back into Board Book Premier to see if I did in fact miss one. See Board Book, let's see, 8.3.1. I see where we had these combined under a resolution in 8.3.1. There are 2 separate resolutions. So the resolution, and please correct me if this is accurate that we've missed it, but the resolution regarding the termination of probationary licensed instructors, I just put this one up on Board Book Premier. Michelle, is this the one that you're referring to? I don't know if you're able to see the Board Book Premier presentation.
I can't log into it. I apologize. I'm looking at the temporary license position.
And that was the one that I had just presented for the motion and the vote. So I can see how things may have gotten out of order. So what I think we have not voted on is 8.3.1.2, probationary teaching contract of probationary teachers. So Michelle, if you could please present that resolution.
So I'm presenting a resolution and requesting board action on the probationary licensed teachers, the termination and non-renewal during their probationary period.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Seidel, I so moved.
Thank you. Moved by Adam Seidel. Is there a second?
I second Andrea Keene.
Seconded by Andrea Keene. Thank you. Is there any discussion? And Andrea, would you please call the roll?
Crystal will.
I apologize. I know that Andrea is not the secretary, and if the screen moves around and I look at where you were the last time, it's invariably Andrea. So, thank you, Crystal.
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an aye. I see Ann Casey has joined us. I know she is.
I will abstain due to my lateness. Thank you. Apologies.
Keene.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Kuntz.
Aye.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
No.
Seidel.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. And at this time, we'll move on to 8.3.3, the resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions. And Michelle, are we back? We're back in sync? Excellent. Love the thumbs up. And Michelle, could you please present the resolution?
I'm presenting the proposed resolution for the board to approve reductions in programs and positions, directing the superintendent of schools and the administration to consider the discontinuance of programs and positions as detailed on the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a motion to bring this to the table?
Excuse me, could there be a question?
Yes.
So I'd like to ask what the purpose of this resolution is and what the administration intends to do with it.
If we'll make the motion to bring it to the table, which then opens it up for discussion. And yes, we can certainly entertain the question.
Sure.
So let's bring it to the table. Is there a motion?
So moved. Adams.
Moved by Steve Adams, seconded by Andrea Keene. Thank you. And Sam, could you please repeat the question?
Yes, I'd like to know what the purpose of this resolution is and what the administration intends to do with this going forward.
Thank you. And Michelle, are you the right person to address a response to the question?
Yes, I can start with the address, and then if Superintendent Lewandowski or General Counsel Ann Becker would like to step in, that works as well. Each year, we reach out to our member districts regarding their programs and services, and their in terms of their if they're continuing the continued services, if they're reducing services, if they're increasing services. And early in February, I bring to the board the resolution to approve, to move forward if need be, a reduction in programs and services based on our member district decisions. And this is in response to a reduction in services, bringing us forward to a resolution to reduce the services for physical therapists for next year.
And if I may ask a follow-up question, this is based in part on enrollment from member districts?
Correct.
Thank
Yes.
you. Sam, does that help clarify the question that you have?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there additional questions or discussion?
Just wondering, how many do we have? Do we have any other physical therapists positions?
Yes, we have a number of physical therapist positions.
Okay, so this one is just part-time. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would just add
Yes.
that Michelle's comment about member district projections is absolutely accurate, but within that, there's an array of different licensures that can ebb and flow based on projections by program and what that particular program profile needs in terms of licensed staff. It really is quite a complicated set of projection making and then translating that to how much staff one needs, just as additional information.
Thank you.
Thanks. That is helpful background. Additional questions or discussion? And Crystal, would you please call the roll?
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an aye. Casey.
Aye.
Keene.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Coons.
Aye.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. And we'll move on to 8.3.4, the resolution proposing to place the following continuing contract licensed staff on unrequested leave of absence. And Michelle, could you please present this resolution?
Thank you, Board Chair. I'm presenting this resolution requesting approval from the board to place the tenured licensed staff as detailed on an unrequested leave of absence.
Thank you. Is there a motion to bring this resolution to the table?
I so move. Andrea Keene.
Moved by Andrea,
Second by Adams.
seconded by Steve Adams. Thank you. Are there any questions or discussion? All right, Crystal, would you please call the roll?
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an aye. Casey.
Aye.
Keene.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Coons.
Aye.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. That concludes the business services segment of our agenda. For information and board business, go to that segment. We don't have there's the AMSD letter. Am I correct that this is the same newsletter we had at our last meeting? It was all familiar faces, and I thought, well, it's 287, so I see 287 a lot, but I think it was also in AMSD with the last time. So but Andrea, is there any AMSD update that you would like to share this evening?
Yes, we did have our final AMSD Board of Directors meeting for the legislative session, which ended last Monday. We had representatives from the Minnesota Department of Education, including Tom Melcher, come and give a review of the results of the session. I would direct everyone to the AMSD website to look at those slides if they want to see the detail. The slides are really good. We also had a quick presentation from the executive director of PELSB talking about changes with that. Again, slides are at the AMSD website. Finally, I'll just quickly remind everyone that you're all invited to a Reimagine Minnesota conference that's being created specifically for school board members. The date is June 17th. The time is 9 a.m. to noon. I've been involved in some of the planning meetings. I think it'll be a really helpful morning. And registration information will be coming soon, hopefully at the beginning of next week. So watch for that. I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there any other business that needs to come before the board this evening? Or we can also just go into once around the table. I know we're approaching the end of this school year. It's been a very different ending from what any of us could have imagined. Is there anything anyone would like to share about closing out the school year virtually in your home districts?
Steve Adams here. I'd just like to share our graduation plans, and I'm curious to hear about other districts. But we're having a drive-by graduation on June 4th at noon. And thankfully, I don't have to put on a business suit. It's a business casual. And then we're going to have a broadcast ceremony at 7 p.m. that night on AM 950. So those are our plans.
That sounds great, Steve. I'll
That
share a
does
little
sound
bit
really
about Wayzata. We still have Mariucci reserved for August 1st, just in case things change. Mainly because we heard tons of student voice that even though they know it likely won't happen, they want to keep that date. So we still have that. And in the meantime, we're doing a virtual graduation with a picture, a quick memory, and then a quick video of every one of our 830 graduates throwing their cap in the air. So should be about as good as it can be.
Well, Edina is doing they're doing multiple things, but what I'm excited about is the Transportation Center is sending a bus to each graduate's home. So it's over 700 stops with an individual, either a member of the board or the district lead team, to personally deliver the diploma cover. The diplomas are always mailed in June. That has not changed. But the caps and gowns have been sent out in advance. So it's an opportunity there will be a photographer to take a picture of the individual receiving their diploma in cap and gown.
Wow.
So,
Wow. That's fantastic.
Fun.
I'll share too.
Any other?
I'll share too. In Robbinsdale, we're doing
Sure.
next week all virtual graduations. We're trying to follow what the Department of Health and Department of Education have stated in the statutes and social distancing. We've just going forward with virtual graduation for all our schools. We have set dates in the future for July 23rd and July 28th for in-person graduation ceremonies, pending what happens with the pandemic. Seeing what's going on, probably most likely won't happen, but to not rob this graduating class, especially 2020, a big year, that they could have the opportunity to do so if possible.
Fantastic.
And Madam Chair, I just reiterate that 287 is doing virtual graduations, very individualized by program. If you haven't gotten the final schedule with invite information. It should be coming soon because it is an array of different dates and times, obviously. And we also have some preferred staff that any graduate might be very close to, who will be making a trip to the house with social distancing just to have a visual presence at their in their neighborhood to congratulate them.
Great. So I appreciate all of the updates. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Michelle Kuntz.
Moved by Michelle.
Second,
I'll second.
Andrea King.
I heard a couple of seconds. Was there one? Did you get a second?
Andrea
I
seconded.
believe I got Andrea.
Fantastic. Crystal, would you please call the roll?
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an aye. Casey.
Aye.
Keen.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Kuntz.
Aye.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Regina. Regina, you still there?
Oh, I think she left, Sam. You have a
I thought
question?
I thought we're going into a work session or something.
Yeah, I think what you need to do is go to your email and find the link for the next meeting. It's going to be a separate meeting with a second link.